I think we finally have both YouTube and Facebook online right now. Looks like we do. So great. Okay, so tonight's topic is this whole idea of natural skin barrier function. And there's lots of different ways that this has been showing up within the skin industry over the last few years. It's gained a lot of momentum, and finally, I mean, it completely should. This is also something called your skin's acid mantle. You'll also might be reading or hearing buzzwords around barrier restoration, skin barrier restoration. These are all terms to describe this invisible layer that is a part of our skin. And the unfortunate thing is that this invisible residue is something that's completely bypassed by conventional skincare. And it's a huge problem, and it causes a lot of problems for our skin. So to make this simpler, I had a client text me the other day and say that she, loved my stuff, but she couldn't get my moisturizer to be absorbed. And the truth is that a good moisturizer should not be absorbed. Now, oil molecule size is so large that it'll never be absorbed into our skin, and we don't need it and we don't want it to. What we do need is a moisturizer that supports our natural skin barrier function. And it melds. A good moisturizer will kind of melt into our skin and absorb into the very utmost layers of our epidermal layer. But it is not meant to be penetrated all of the way. There's no use for it down there. The primary function of a moisturizer is to trap water in our skin. And that's essentially what our skin's natural acid mantle does. And our acid mantle it's an interesting thing because it's such a huge part of what creates skin health. And it is like we have our dermal layer, which is our deeper layer. We have our epidermal layer, which is on top of that. And then on top of that is our skin's natural acid mantle barrier. And it's not specifically a layer. Like I said, it's an invisible film. It's a residue that is made up of our own natural skin oil and our own sweat. And the combination, I know it sounds gross, but it's not. The combination of our own sweat and our own natural oil creates this acid mantle barrier. And it's slightly acidic, and that's why it's called our acid mantle. And the many amazing things about this unsung hero of our skin is that besides trapping water in our skin, it's also slightly acidic and kills bacteria and viruses upon contact. And that's pretty crucial because our skin is one of the main things about our immune system. And so having an intact natural acid mantle for our skin and having that, completely in place and covering the top of our skin is what's going to kill bacteria and viruses like just immediately. And the other thing that it does for our skin is that it creates this level of equanimity for our skin. Because it traps water in our skin, it also stabilizes oil production and just creates this sense of calmness for our skin. And I have noticed over the years through my own experience with my own skin, my kids' skin, just watching people's skin for the many years that I have, skin that has had chemical peels, microdermabrasion, all of these trauma-based procedures, and of course, benzoyl peroxide and all of the acne protocols, it disrupts this acid mantle. It completely bypasses it and destroys it. And so that's sort of like the beginning of the end of our skin's health. Like once that's been dissolved and undone, then it's just a downward spiral from there. Skin that doesn't have an intact acid mantle will sunburn way more easily, like way more easily. It will also become dehydrated almost immediately, and which is prone to, and is also prone to inflammation, just that irritation, skin that gets really grumpy and is upset at anything that it comes into contact. It's because it's missing this really vital residue layer that's supposed to be on our skin. So this is, something that anybody that gets me talking about skincare for at any point will like really hear me rev up around this topic, because it's somewhat, I'm just always in awe, like all of these acne procedures and all of the anti-aging procedures do not take our acid mantle into consideration at all. And it's something that we can still exfoliate our skin by leaving this residue intact. There's ways of going about this where we can still exfoliate and we can still rejuvenate our skin without having to destroy it and set our skin back and give it a handicap, essentially. And one of the ways that we can do that is, number one, is to stop the over cleansing and the over scrubbing. And of course, the second way is to not withhold oil from our skin. There's this really popular belief that the use of a heavier moisturizer will clog our pores. And in that phobia, there's this withholding of oil that our skin, doesn't get that extra support, because we can rebuild our skin's acid mantle every day, and we should, and just support that natural process, so that every day our skin is getting that feeling of calmness, equanimity, trapping the water in, all of those things, that managing inflammation, making our skin so that it's not grumpy with everything it comes into contact with. And so that's like my somewhat of my information about our acid mantle. What else did I want to say about it? I'm trying to think what other information I wanted to hand out about it. I will say this, beyond that, our skin just ages faster when it's not intact and becomes congested. There's a lot of issues that happens with skins that's not getting supported that way. So to, use a hydrating serum and to use a lipid-rich moisturizer supports that. And I also wanted to mention that there's this big misunderstanding that our skin is becoming congested and is dirty because we're not getting our skin clean enough. And it's just not true. The reason our skin is congesting is not from external makeup or sweat or dirt. Those are all things that are so easily rinsed away in the shower, even without a cleanser. The reason that our skin is getting congested is because our skin is so chronically dehydrated from, number one, missing just this basic skin function of having our acid mantle intact and functioning. So that's the biggest reason. It's ironic, it's tragic, it's all the things that, all of these furious efforts are made to keep our pores clear. And conventionally, the way that we've been approaching that has been ironically doing exactly the opposite. It's been directly contributing to the congestion of our skin. Let's see what, I will mention that another bonus of having an acid mantle that's intact and using a lipid-rich moisturizer, besides all of the things that I've just mentioned, is that makeup and sunscreen won't get crammed into our pores the way that they ordinarily would if that barrier wasn't in place. And especially if that's not supported by a heavier moisturizer, because there really is that protective layer of oil that prevents makeup and sunscreen from being just like stuffed and crammed into our little pores. That residual layer really is a protective layer that helps our makeup and sunscreen go on and off with complete ease. So I think that's kind of what I wanted to share. I'm keeping these Facebook Lives pretty short. I'm not fielding any questions at this point, just in an effort to keep these pretty short. I will speak to very quickly before I sign off on how I have so many clients that come to me and talk about how beautiful their mother or their grandmother's skin was and is. And I think that the answer isn't quite this simple, but I think it's a huge contributing factor, is that our grandmothers didn't use traditional anti-aging protocols. They weren't using glycolic acid on their skin. They were doing all of the protective things, like we've all heard stories of our grandmothers or somebody's grandmothers using Vaseline on their skin, or just these like very basic, simple moisturizers, even mineral oil on their skin. And because they were, for one, protecting their skin from these trauma-based procedures that will age us faster. Number two, they weren't destroying their skin's natural acid mantle on a daily basis or ever. They were only doing things that were protective and supporting their skin's natural acid mantle. And so I do think that that's a huge factor. And I know that it's not quite that simple. I also know that our grandmothers enjoyed organic food and fresh water and fresh air, and didn't have to deal with social media and a lot of stressors that modern women do. I think electronics play a big role in our health, just the exposure that we have to our cell phones and to Wi-Fi signals. So I just wanted to mention that, because I almost on a daily basis, because I specialize in difficult skin and skin that doesn't respond to the conventional methods, that's usually the people who find me, is that they're always so often just like mentioning their mothers and grandmothers who didn't have these issues. And so they're just somewhat, baffled and confounded by why their skin would be having these issues when it doesn't seem to genetically run in their family. And I think that our environments, the toxins in our environments, combined with the use of acne and anti-aging products that are traditionally used with all of the acids and the benzoyl peroxides. And I also want to say that most essential oils are disruptive to our acid mantle. And a lot of companies are using those as well because they smell so good. And so, they can get us emotionally hooked on some beautiful citrus or lime or, something that smells good. That's a plus to them, even though it's something that our skin is not into. So, I think that that's a lot of really good information, just sort of entry level about our natural skin barrier mantle restoration. Like, you'll hear all these words kind of together, and they're interchangeable. Acid mantle, barrier restoration, your skin's natural barrier function. They're all the same thing. And it has to do with respecting and honoring and taking into deep consideration this invisible layer that's so, so important to our skin with our daily and evening home care routines. So again, my name is Danny, and I am the creator of Skin Harmonics, the first Medi-Holistic skin resurfacing process supported by dermal nutrient healing products. You can find me on Instagram, and of course, on this Facebook group and across all platforms as Skin Harmonics. And I'm not quite sure what next topic's going to be, but I'll see everybody in a couple of weeks. Bye.